Cool. So, I guess the general vibe was like, last week and all that, people asking questions, trying to figure out a bit more about Voyager, and it seems that people want to know what is Voyager, and so we're going to go through this kind of quick deck we put together yesterday and today, and just try and get some questions from you guys as well, answering back at us. But we're just going to talk through some things, and hopefully going forward, some of the future, agoras are not going to be us doing sort of these presentations. We're going to loosen it up a bit and be a bit more conversational about what's going on. But we're just still trying to do this, laying the groundwork of what we're coming together for. So.
Yeah. Also, question. I would say something else, like more than a presentation, we can talk about this. It's like an open conversation. So if you guys want to jump in at any moment, and we're not trying. We set it up like a bit of a scheme of what we want to talk, but this is like is an invitation for you to intervene and answer. There will be a lot of questions, so you can answer if you feel like. Just wanted to say that. And it's this first bit's not really going heavily into the tech, but we're totally aware of it. We're just still just laying out what is Voyager at its sort of core. So first question, what is Voyager? Probably go to the next slide, Nick, so I can read what we wrote there. So the idea is Voyager stands for art practice, or the center of this whole thing is this idea of art practice. And we are a community of artists centered around our practice and its relationship with the animate world we live in. So all the forces of our reality. We're going to be a community of artists who are centered around practicing our crafts, doing our thing, and in that, its relationship to the world around us is incredibly important and sort of affects so many things. So that is what we're coming together to be in relationship with. And then down the bottom there, we've got, it was just other iterations of the same thing. Voyager is a practice. Voyager is an art practice. Voyager is relationships, because it is kind of multifaceted. Once you go, it's like a community. It's a network. There's information coming through, people doing projects, the DAO structure, the economy, all these different things. So, yeah. I don't know if you guys want to talk into anything, but otherwise. Yeah, we can go. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Give you like an idea of what we're trying to do here, and also the difference in between the other DAOs, because of course there's like other creator DAOs, and this is what we want to focus on as a base.
Yeah, so very quick comment on in calling Voyager Creator DAO, there are other Creator DAOs, and ours is about this focus and philosophical approach to the focus on the practice and the kind of to each individual member in connection to the community overall. But all will be kind of touched on as we kind of jump through this thing this morning.
Yeah. So next one, what is this idea of art practice? Like, why is that at the center? Next slide. Okay, so I sort of wrote this bit. So art is one of the fundamentals of our universe. So there's a few basic things of how everything kind of works. And art, everything is art in a way. So art is one of the fundamentals of our universe. It's the love story in the forces of nature that we experience every day, and it expands across all time. It's art all the way down, so we best nurture this relationship, and practice is the way to nurture this relationship. So the idea of the love story and all that kind of stuff is more like, not to scare anyone away, it's just that all those dynamics of life, or what you might experience in love with someone, ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, that's what we experience in creating art, and that's what we experience in life in general. So maybe you guys might have some ideas of what your view of art and art practice is that you want to talk about. Anyone who's listening in, so please share if you want.
I would say.
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, go first. No, go from both of you.
Steph.
Okay, then I go first and then you go. No, well, just I think it's cool because it sounds to me maybe it's like a little bit an answer to something that people entering the space are coming to. Like they get so obsessed with the tech and so obsessed with just moving fast that sometimes we forget to put the highest priority on making art, what we do love. So I think it's a nice intention to kind of bring artists back to their essence. So I like that.
Perfect. That's it. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was going to say, I definitely do agree with everything I said before. Also, I think it's more art can be seen as the original factual storytelling or documentation of technology and civilization at its present times over time. So you had, if you go as far back as even like if you believe in like evolution and stuff, like as far back as like cavemen carving what they saw, what they were doing at the time in caves, to further on you've got the Egyptians, and even with Chinese, African, European, and everyone had their version of art to symbolize whether it's religion, whether it's a state of affairs, or whatever the case is. So I think it was our original storytelling or stating what was happening at the time. And I think fast forward in each iteration of each civilization through time has their own way of showing their art to represent what's going on at the time and how they feel about who it is and what it is and stuff like that. So that's what I think art means in like a big nutshell.
Yeah, it's
sort of like.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ancient thing. So this is what we're talking about. Like humans always being attached to making art and making music. Like there is no, I think, record that human didn't make music or didn't make art. It's in us. So it's true. It's ancient. We're not talking about something new.
But I do get a bit what you're talking about, Jahani, like this idea that it's almost like the residue of humans interacting with their lives, like through history. It's sort of they become timepieces, or if you take that Marshall McLuhan kind of idea of like we're the antennas, sort of picking up things that are coming into society, and as we pick those things up, society is supposed to use the artists to navigate. So these artists are picking up things from the future, like Andy Warhol did this. He picked up on sort of what we're in now. We brought it in back then. So yeah, it's a sort of like artifact in a way. Anyway, all different institutions.
Yeah, I love that use of the phrase, it's to express what's happening. Like we're expressing the what's happening. And that now what's happening is this kind of like advancing into this like technocratic future or whatever it is. And while that's all going on the other side, you kind of have the more the potential for the sort of heart opening use of technology that's a little more in resonance with nature potentially, and those sort of open systems. And then that's what we're exploring. I love the idea that as a collective of artists and stuff all expressing what we feel is happening or creating in the flow of our own lives. That to me is what is really exciting about such collectives or potentially DAOs, that we can do that together and sort of therefore capture and explore more in collaboration than we might do in our own sort of local context. And yeah.
Or even if there's just this idea, everything's becoming more and more individualized in a lot of societies in a way, and I'm pretty sure back in the day, it wasn't so much about the individual. It was sort of like, it was the collective and the sort of larger, stars above you and the freaking jungle and everything's alive. You sort of togetherness rather than sort of just me doing my thing.
Also, by the way, like a kind of a togetherness, but like whatever the sort of social graph of folks that are going to have already or will be joining Voyager and stuff, a lot of us are potentially leaning into this kind of counterculture, counter ways of thinking. A small percentage of the overall population, and therefore we've had often more individualized journeys and a more kind of a different sort of space. So the idea of like coming all together across a sort of global network, but in our own local context, often we're kind of like the outsiders or the rebels, and so there's something very interesting about that.
I have actually an observation that I think might be helpful for Voyager is that when I was collaborating, I collaborated in a lot of like NFT projects, and one of them is called Good Morning News, where I like get to write news stories, and then there's like a different news story. But in regards to the collaboration, like when I sent it to the editors, like I trust them, but they could change it a little bit completely from what I envisioned it to be. And it was through that experience that I'd never had really experienced before, because, as an artist or as a creative, you kind of have a vision. And when you are collaborating with others, it's like you have this role and I have that role, and then we just like put it together. But I think that there's also this thing about Web3, not even just in creative and DAOs and things like that, where you're really all in it together in the project. And I think that it kind of needs to be said or shown or guided for creatives that are entering this space is really the art of letting go and what we actually mean by collaboration, so that people are not, it'll make them much more creative and open, right? Because they've always been blinded. It was like, am I good enough for this? Can I participate in this? But I think that when everybody says that it's okay, that it's not perfect, and it's okay that we're all collaborating together, I think that would set a precedent for any project, for people to be open and for people to think more collectively than like unconsciously individual. So that's just like my advice from my experience.
Spot on. Yeah, like this is you got it.
Yeah. So
shall we move?
Let's continue. So next slide, Nick. So just before, it was just, okay, the bit about, we're saying, what is art practice? We're talking about what is a bit about art. Like it's, this fundamental of sort of reality in a way. Not everyone interacts with it or sees it as like, the thing they do. But, like life is an artwork. The universe is an artwork. That's just the basic idea, right? So put that there. And then practice is the repetitive ritual of devotion to your craft. It's not necessarily just to your craft if you widen it. Practice is this repetitive ritual of devoting yourself to something that you're focused on. It could be like your kid at some point in your life. It could be, food. It's so many layers. It could be anything. But the idea is that, for Voyager, we're coming around art practice because that's like, hopefully what we're all into. And so the consistent focus leads to, flow states. And in this rapture, and generally, this all contains the dynamics of an ordeal. So an ordeal means that in there it's going to be hard. So it's not going to be perfect, kind of like what you were just talking to before. Basically, it's the fabric of what moves our reality. I don't know if you guys want to talk to anything about that. Feel free.
Well, I might comment very quickly before others jump in, but just coming to mind, this kind of, when we talk about art practice, creative practice, our view is that it's kind of across all mediums and expressions. We're not just talking about, visual art, or that kind of, it can be music, writing, speaking, media projects, like whatever is your jam. We feel like there's a place for you here, because it's about the ritual of the practice, and that sort of approach, that kind of lifestyle is what we're talking about. I felt like adding that comment.
Yeah, so generally it's this idea of your daily practice, like something you would you're devoted to, that you're kind of honoring this relationship with something, and you do it every day. It doesn't have to be every day, but that's what essentially what Beeple has done. He's sort of in this relationship with the Force, and because of that relationship, his whole life around him is changed to this relationship, for better or worse. Like, I think he was, when his kid was born, he had to go and pump out an artwork because he was doing his dailies. So these relationships are powerful, and we all sort of have them in different ways with different things. But practicing them is how you sort of nurture them and grow them, and having a healthy practice and stuff like this. And then the consistent focus leads to these more ancient kind of states of like getting into trance, which is kind of like flow state.
Yeah.
Becoming this sort of we can say antenna, but the old myths talk about the past, present, and future. You're basically converging time to pool this sort of infinite information into present, and you do this through going through hard times, or the dynamic of shit, this is boring, why am I doing it right, and all these different things. And then it's like giving birth, and it's like at the end, I just can't freaking do this. And then you give birth, and that's the bursting open, that's the rapture, that's the latest artwork that you've done or something.
Consistency and repetition and stuff. It's like if I pick up a guitar or play a keyboard like once every few weeks or something, whatever my output is going to be very different to if I'm just showing up every single day and doing that thing. And, and that, therefore I'm going to break through and kind of write better stuff, most likely start tapping into something, or having there's more surface area for moments of kind of breakthrough and realization. Yeah. I had another thought about that. That's fine.
And so just to one last thing. So like basically so far the three of us wanted to do our art, right? And we entered the space of Web3, and it's like perfect. But it didn't feel right because it was just sort of out into the void. And so the reason Voyager exists, and right now that is our artwork. Like the other art, the sort of me doing visual stuff, jamming with music, it's all had to stop because it all is now coming around this idea of Voyager, this idea of getting into daily practice. It's all I need to do, and we're doing it to build Voyager right now. And once it's sort of running and becomes more of a DAO, then we can actually like go back to doing other aspects of art that we really like. So this idea of coming around the center of the daily art practice, we're doing this, and then we have to sort of help propagate this out to other people who want to do it, or people who are already doing it. They're going to, different aspects they're going to connect with. That just sort of add that.
Yeah, cool. Creating the vessel and the container, basically.
That's it. So next slide. How do we practice together? So we're in, right now we're all digitally separated. So how do we practice together? Is this something we're going to have to solve? We're going to have to solve this together. I don't have the answers. There's a mental model that I've got on there, but the basic idea is that like back in the day, practicing together is it's a festival. And it's not so much like a festival we have now. It's like a freaking ancient festival where people go through the same experience we're talking about in practice. They get into trance and they have these raptures and they connect with very physical things. It's not, it really requires dirt and sweat and fire and blood and sound, all sorts of stuff. It involves that, which is what a great festival is anyway, right? So hopefully at some point we have our own festivals, and it'll be a mix of everything that we are, all the different energies that come into Voyager. So that'll be really cool. But the mental model of big, medium, and small.
I think we've got that coming up shall I jump straight to the next one? Or it might be interesting here to put for a second, and for the folks tuning in, feel free to comment, potentially, how have you either participated in other DAOs or kind of online communities in terms of practicing together or coming back to, to share your work and to vibe with your community and things like that? Any other relatable experiences come to mind?
Yeah, and if you please go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. I've been in some camp for a little bit, and now it's Camp Chaos. I don't know if anybody here heard of it, but it's like a big collaborative camp of music artists with visual artists with economic teams and NFT rollout. And I think we're 80 people. It started 2 weeks ago, and we already made, I think, 12 songs now. So it's definitely fascinating to see exactly what Fem, sorry if I'm pronouncing wrong, but was talking about, seeing how people can collaborate when they don't know each other, and they're just meeting and they need to create something in some time container. So it's really fascinating to see. And definitely this point of that everybody needs to be okay, that it's gonna be chaotic, it's gonna be difficult, and there's gonna be tensions, there's gonna be not tensions but just it's just a lot of emotions and challenges. So I think if everyone is kind of okay with that going in, then it's we don't know where we're going, but we're all okay with that and we're together. Yeah. So yeah.
Thanks for saying that. I'm happy that you already touched some of certain points that for sure we took in consideration. From what I can tell you, the experience you're telling me, we take in consideration the idea that you have to know each other. First of all, it comes in my mind, we are slow. As you might imagine, we are slow. We are not forcing everything into a challenge or a fight against the time. We want to make know each other, and we are already thinking about activities and presenting artists to each other before acting, and this is part of our plan. But yeah, of course, you have to let it go. That's the entire thing. And there will be tensions. You have to say maybe no. It's no, maybe yes. This is the point. Me and Luke and Nick collaborate all the time. In our life, there's no tensions. There are tensions. And you can make it healthy. We come, that's right, Luke, right? I'm being very honest. We come with little tension, and then we solve them beautifully. You can do it beautifully, then it's nice. This is my experience so far. And you have to let it go. Keep your ego at home. There's no space for that.
I think also as well, as we evolve the project, and we're going to share a little bit more in the last few coming slides. I personally, and we are super appreciate Song Camp and other things like it, and think it's a really interesting model for sort of events, happenings, initiatives that we can also bring out together. That will share some of the characteristics while probably being in different forms and things like that. And therefore, there can be opportunities to go fast together in certain containers and forms. If you want to jump in and we're doing this sort of activity thing over a certain timeline, and we're going to do this thing together and kind of go through the ordeal and the experience of creating something, that's great. And then if it's more your speed is like, well, I'm just happy kind of being connected and talking with people in the community, sharing my projects and commenting on other people's stuff and that's fine too. You can go slow as well. But at times that kind of the speed and a tight deadline and just like, shit, it's chaos, it's impossible. And then we come out the other side together, I think is a really also a healthy guy.
Yeah. That's the whole wave dynamics thing, that whole thing of, things contracting and expanding. It's moving.
So speak to how do we practice together as well? Like this kind of mental model of big, medium, small is kind of quite healthy or helpful in conceptualizing it. So Luke, shall I throw to you for this bit, or I'm happy to speak to it?
Yeah. I guess we just swap it. So I got this off this guy, Jama Djurabev, who's a concept artist dude. And I think what it is, big, medium, and small is basically like, I think it's like the golden ratio of kind of fractions maybe. But it started to pop up in my own work that I was doing these weekly art sessions with a group of people. And it was called dynamic drawing. And it was just like, look, doesn't matter what you draw, just scribble, just jam, like you're kind of doing music or jazz or whatever it is. And I found that a big part of it was maybe not, was basically the practice. It was just in repetition doing it. A medium part of it, like there was just some interesting art visually. And then a very small part of it was kind of like, the rapture, the magic. So the mental model of this, applying it to what Voyager is that like the thing has to be a big part about us, so the human side of something. So you, me, all of us, that's the big part of Voyager. That's the practice. That's the stuff we're going to go through. The medium part is the network. It's the relationships in between everyone and the different systems and stuff. And then the small part is going to be the technology. And it's kind of like that art practice where like you put the human first, put the practice first. And then it's like it in relationship to things, it gets a bit more dynamic. And then there's this little thing over there, which actually is huge. It's like Web3. It's freaking all the technology or all of the stuff going on in the world. That small little thing over there, that's also going to now, well, the idea is that we're all excited that it's changing something. So it doesn't mean that we don't give it any attention. It just means we do lots of preparation before we use it. And that's, essentially for us, that is the platform of Ethereum and the sort of the tools that it gives us to collectively interact. How was that?
Yeah, I like that. And we've got a little more to share before the end here, but yeah, this mental model is super key and super helpful and kind of really helps to tell the story of like what this Voyager ecosystem resonance and network is kind of all about. And that we realize that it being the big thing, the most explosive force potentially, is each individual creator in their practice. And ultimately that is what can have the greatest impact. It can be your own creative work at an individual level in connection to it, to the community, but ultimately that is the explosive nuclear force, if you like. And then, the medium being in connection to the people around you. And we realize that when we're talking through this model, that it's sort of the opposite or the inverse of many or most projects, even in Web3 or crypto, where it's often like the protocol or the platform is the biggest focus, or the marketplace is the biggest focus or something like that. And ultimately the smallest focus is the people. the users of a given protocol or whatever is kind of the smallest attention, whereas like the biggest thing is like, oh, look at the transaction volume or the whatever is, you know what I mean? So it's kind of so much of crypto and Web3 puts the tech first, but we realized in our format it's kind of the inverse of that.
Yeah, and how we're working together, we still have to that was the question, right? How do we practice together? Big, medium, small. We didn't really answer. We still have to work out exactly how we practice together.
Yeah, we're working. It's okay. But let's just like run through to the end of here as well, and I feel like it answers some of those questions along the way. So
next thing, incentives. What is the incentive to do this? And so here it says, from the inside outwards. So it's not all about what can I get out of it experience. This is a network of healthy relationships centered around practicing art. It's the dynamic connection of this in itself that is the overflowing nectar that we seek. So it's not necessarily about like, what can I get out of it? Those experiences happen. It could be like that for you. You might be like, well, what can I get out of this? There's also a thing of like, you might know that the feeling that you get from this Voyager thing, you might just know that it's right. It's just something about it. But this idea that it's got to come from inside you outwards, these incentives. When it gets more complicated, we start talking about the economy. What is the financial stuff? But at its core, it's got to come from the inside out. Like you literally, I mean, not for everyone, of course, but in general, it should come from the inside out, not external inwards.
Yeah, and also recognizing and honoring the fact that when you're thinking to interact with or join a DAO, such as Voyager or a Web3 project of any kind, the sort of question of like, well, what can I get out of it? What here is for me kind of thing is completely rational, and it's how we kind of approach there's so much happening in the space that kind of choosing what you would like to put your time and attention and focus into is a really key question, and generally, something that we're kind of screening everything for constantly because there's so much going on. And so we're completely cognizant of the kind of that we will be creating something of an economy that's happening here, but as Luke's alluding to, like the sort of completely outscaled, impactful at a personal level thing is the kind of the connection to the network, the kind of the experience of the practice and the process is kind of ultimately going to be the superpowered thing about the experience, rather than when can I get an airdrop or these kinds of things. Even though those things, will be included, there will be token dynamics and all that kind of stuff, but it's not the default.
Yeah, and also there's like a question mark to the one before to the slide before. It's like we can also ask you if you need any other incentives, or like we are here to hear what you, if there is not enough, or I don't know. Just saying like we keep it open, and we hear also from you guys.
Comments from folks around what are healthy incentives for you guys in wanting to be active or connected with a project like this.
Because it is tricky.
I think for me, it's really just ensuring that I bring value and feel valued. So it's less about like the token allocation. I think when I think about like compensation, it's more about like the rudimentary things when I'm just doing a bunch of like admin work or project management work. But I think that it is really helpful to create the cadence is when you can work on something and actually see it to fruition. So if like projects take like 6 months and nothing's really happening and we're not like, maintaining this cadence, then that's probably what's going to lead to my drop off. But for me, I think the most important thing is just bringing value and feeling valued.
That's great.
Beautiful.
Love that comment.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was pretty special. It was good.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments with regards to value. I may take a sidestep approach to it in terms of value as well as knowledge. I have like a first of knowledge to do with Web3. So for me, that's one of the main reasons why I'm part of let's say, for example, Water Music, because they actually they give out knowledge, and also I can also give my version of or pass the knowledge of the space or whatever the case is. So definitely, even when you speak about like the tokenomics, I'll definitely love to learn about the social, like creating like, let's say, a social token, or even the rewards that you can do with like how that's kind of thought about, the thought process behind why you're doing your ethos behind why you're gonna hand out the tokens that you hand out, how much value they are, and all of that type of stuff. So for me, it's a value thing as well as a knowledge thing, because I want to learn, and and then I'll also bring any brain dumps that I find from just scouring Twitter and whatever DAOs that I'm in, other DAOs I'm in.
Oh man, ask Luke and Ivano about that, and my kind of constant bringing the highlights of Twitter into our shared lives. But yeah, so knowledge and value, understanding, and also feeling valued, and being able to recognize that projects can come in and get started, but be seen through to fruition, that we're not spinning our wheels, that there is a practice here that ultimately results in things happening and being seen through to actually being published.
Yeah. Super nice.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for that. So next slide we're on is, okay, so that's part of the same thing of the incentives idea, and that was Ivano's, he's at NDSM, which is like a collective multi-studio space that is inside a giant warehouse in the north of Amsterdam. And so there's multiple art studios all inside this big building, and then when you leave it, they've got this graffiti across from the other warehouse, which is make art, not euros.
Yeah. And this is what I basically see every day. So for me, it's really hard not to bring it in. And then we adapted to make art, not ETH. Or this is what you can read, or you can read it also make art note, kind of like you're making bank note. So that's make art, not ETH. You can read it also. Focus on your art, not focus on the, making money, making, this kind of stuff. Like,
yeah.
So it kind of feel like this is very Voyager, and this let me think, like, can we use art as our currency? Is this an incentive? Can we, I like the idea of feeling you're printing your own notes. Can we use what we value, which is art, as in our system? And it's a question. Like, technically, I don't have an answer. It's more as a thought.
And I think, Nick put something in the Discord. This chick was talking about localized currencies and stuff like this, and about monoculture currencies. I'm sure like Jay Henny would love to talk about this kind of stuff too. So we'll dive deep at some point, but it's just the idea of local economy, or as it was in Greek, it's the household. Is that right, Ivano? Is the economics household?
I think so. I'm not big in Greek, but I think I think so. Yeah.
So this is sort of this link of the sort of the home space, or You know, and I think in the talk, it was this idea that, you know, the euro was never supposed to be the blanket monoculture currency for Europe. It was supposed to be the in-betweener between the various currencies that Europe has. So you had like a local economy running on their own currency, and then you have, you know, the euros. How do you sort of trade to trade between other currencies? So there's a whole vortex in there, of course, as we get into that kind of thing. But also this idea of like, can we make our own currency that's beyond just a token? You know, are just NFTs? Will they become? I don't know. It's a big thing. So we can have a big session on that.
Yeah. As far as like technology and economies and stuff, like reflecting nature in various ways, and therefore like a monoculture is inherently weaker or more at risk of kind of falling apart. You know, like the Irish potato famine is a great example, because they were producing only essentially or favoring one particular type of potato above, you know, the kind of 30 or so different potato varieties or species that exist. But then when you get a fungus that wipes out that type of potato, then you're kind of done. Or various like global economic shocks and things like that. So at the same time, it's kind of like a polyculture is much more resilient, and that's the key.
I wonder what you guys read when you read like make art, not leave. What comes in your mind? Because there might be also other interpretation, I guess.
Let's jump over here. Oh yes. So how do we start? And we've been thinking a lot about this the last couple weeks, especially, I suppose. And as we kind of myself, Luke, and Ivano, like working through Voyager last year and stuff, and then we launched the first Mirror article where we kind of made an announcement of like, okay, here's Voyager and here's what we have in mind for season 0 and this and that. And then thinking through on the kind of how do we start, it's like, okay, that's all great. And we've kind of like thought through a lot of the vision or the narrative or the kind of what inspires or motivates us in creating this thing and all that. We're very conscious in terms of how do we actually start now in season 0 is about now really forming what Voyager is all about together collectively as a community. Because ultimately, if it's just us determining what things are and the kind of the principles and the guiding playbook of Voyager, then it's not going to be resilient. That's almost a bit of a monoculture, isn't it? Like we're kind of coming from our own perspective. And also that's just not how societies work. Like it can't be us creating it. So the idea that we've had for one of the major projects in season 0 of the DAO is kind of becoming a bit more of a DAO. And so in that, it's about creating a tool that we can use to co-create. Like that's the intention of what Voyager is. And so the idea is that we need an operating system, an onboarding experience for Voyager created collectively as a community. And so the idea that we have that we'll kind of announce for the community, inviting people in, is that we're keen to create a project flow together and to start creating like the OS of Voyager, as you like, in module stages. So it helps us to define what Voyager is all about. Someone asks the question, what is Voyager? We're going to define that together collectively. And the kind of like, how does it function? How do we interact with each other? How does this thing work? We would like to define that together collectively as well, from our kind of broad range of experience and knowledge and all those kinds of things, being able to invite people in. And I suppose in thinking of it as an operating system is another fairly useful mental model, because it's like we'll be creating the OS like 1.0, but it's an operating system that can be updated over time as our context changes and things like that. That's kind of the thought here.
Yeah.
And so on that as well, like something I'll add as well. So like the OS, we're kind of creating the how we do things and all this kind of, but this is also like a really healthy step in the direction of myself, Luke, and Ivano, who've kind of collaborated together to create Seed, or the beginnings, the blueprint of the vessel that we all hope to kind of create together and experience together. But through this process already, we're looking to start sort of decentralizing out the creation of what this thing is all about. So it's less of the three of us kind of determining things. We already want to kind of start branching things out, and also creating the kind of vision for how does this society or community kind of manage things in terms of, so we're not in a position of always deciding things, that we can start to spread things out, and decide how we all sort of interact together and how that works. And we feel like now is a really great time to start defining all that. So as we start to roll out things like a new website and having the catalog built on Zora, and essentially as the kind of the platform and the framework for creation, like sort of is all coming online, that we also have the sort of the operating system, manual and guidebook, like is also created, so we know how to use these tools collectively. Yeah, I'll cut myself off.
No, that was good, Nick. Thank you. And operating system and onboarding experience. And we obviously all have our own ideas of what that is. And I think Ivano's maybe going to talk to someone to see if they can bring them on to talk to us a bit about it.
Yeah. So at this point, we are relying on onboarding, like almost like personal. I would say like personally, one by one. We will chat with some of you, but of course, this is just the very first step. That we need to have something that works a little better. And I think like you are the best people to ask, because like you are already like some of you are partially onboarded, some don't know anything about us, so you are like the best people that can suggest, I would need something like this, or I would need you to I have an idea on our onboarding, or I've been on another onboard and they're doing like that. We're open to that, and we can design this process together, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, as far as onboarding right now, it's like we have been. You've all joined under the auspices of like, look, we're doing this interesting creative experiment together. We're going to see what it is and where it goes and all that kind of thing. But in the near future, the intention is to have more kind of holistic onboarding in terms of, people can, to a large extent, onboard themselves, because we have the materials there that are all, sort of written up, digestible. You can kind of read about what Voyager is in various iterations. So like we've created that there. And then we also have, the regular kind of meetups, the opportunity to connect with others, to kind of be brought up to speed by existing members, all that kind of stuff. But again, while we're keen to create this kind of OS thing collaboratively, we're also keen to create the onboarding experience collaboratively as well. And while we think about Voyager potentially as an interface, you can imagine showing up to the future version of the website. It's like, I'm a visual artist, I'm a musician, I'm a writer, I'm this, I'm that. And it can kind of guide you through, like, that's great. Like you can kind of have a slightly customized onboarding depending on what you're actually interested in. There's, and then the social side of, we have these regular meetups and all that kind of stuff that people can kind of get brought up to speed. But interested and keen to kind of create that onboarding together collectively as well. Feels like the best way.
Yeah, I'll just say something quickly. Like, obviously, we've got all these ideas. We planted the seed. Ivano's come through with the idea of the sort of the story or the branding in a way is this idea of collage. So we come with this. Now we sort of open it up a bit. We're still going to hold this vessel, the cup, as this base structure, so that we can kind of still steer the ship a bit. And as we dissolve away and this new structure forms with all of us, it's going to almost reinterpret everything we have here into its new version. So, this is sort of some of the groundwork, but now we have to actually do the groundwork as well as a collective. So, yeah.
So very quickly on the kind of what's next, is our intention with this kind of season 0 phase is that we'll be announcing, probably for the first meeting will be even next week, potentially, to kind of start this conversation around creating this operating system together, kind of defining what the DAO is all about and how it operates and things like that. So we'll be creating an invitation for that. That'll be the sort of first open session for folks to join and discuss this project. Our intention is to kind of define a framework or a process for then how we move through this thing. We're imagining in creating the OS, it goes in a few kind of modules that we kind of create each section as we go in some kind of regular cadence or process. But we'll kind of figure out and optimize the best way that goes as we go along, but kind of, starting at square one, starting at the kind of defining our overall values or whatever might be the first stage. But yeah, the what's next is basically we're going to invite whoever is interested and keen to contribute and collaborate in this process. And we're thinking that we'll have our first meetup about this project next week. And it can kind of be documented in the Clarity tool that we're going to be sharing with everybody. And I feel like that's a lot of what's next. Other things are we're going to have the regular newsletter that's coming out for updates. And we're going to be doing these agora sort of town hall style meetups regularly each week as well. So we're kind of setting up the regular kind of heartbeat pulse of the community.
Yeah, I think, Nick, you probably just want to mention that you're thinking of changing the time slot for this meeting.
Yeah, we're thinking of changing it to the same time, but on Wednesdays, because it seems like all of Web3 wants to meet up exactly now each week. There's just more and more DAOs and events and stuff all happening at this time. So I think we might move to Wednesday just so people can join this and also join everything else that's happening on Thursdays. Seemed like a thing to do.
But yeah, basic idea is we have this meeting every week, this agora. It's sort of our town hall and our heartbeat and our tempo. And that's just this consistent ritual. And then they're going to have this breakaway conversation where now we need to do this first project, or these sort of two projects in a way. They're kind of one. And that is going to be a separate call with the people who want to kind of participate in that. And then we have to bring some of those findings and that kind of stuff to the agora. That's the basic.
Also want to note that our intention with these agoras is not for us to be sharing these slide presentations most of the time. It's kind of, we had some updates here to share, and apparently it seems to have been quite effective in previous ones that we've done the last few and recorded them, and then people are watching them asynchronously and stuff. And kind of, it's been a good way for us to kind of share a lot of stuff fairly quickly, and people can dial in. But the intention with the agora going forward is it's more of a chance for the community to meet up, to share projects you're working on, what's inspiring you, what's going on. It's going to become more of a show and tell kind of time, we feel. But for the people that are here now in the room, would love to hear if you have any thoughts or reactions to this idea of creating an OS together, and this being a focus of season 0 for the project.
I mean,
cool. Nothing.
No. Well, you need to be. Maybe it's clear enough. And that was our last slide, right?
Yeah. Does it sound good to you? Does it sound good to you all? How do you feel about what we just talked about here?
Well, I feel it's really nice. Thank you for making this presentation. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to talking a bit more, just conversations, and I like this slow pace. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm also excited for what you described, what the ethos and the reason the reason behind why you're doing this as well. It definitely sounds exciting, and definitely love to meet more people in the space, even if it's not directly to collaborate with them, but maybe even to put them in touch with other people that might require their skills or stuff like that. So definitely looking forward to like networking with everybody, whether you're a musician or that's someone that's even into fashion, NFTs, or whatever the case is. Because like I said, I'm kind of like, I'm a thirst for knowledge, so picking everyone's brain and being like a jack of all trades but master of none is kind of like what I'm kind of good at. So yeah, definitely looking forward to collaborating and communicating with everybody.
Super cool. And yeah, that I'm excited for that too. Like obviously we've talked about last week, like Gather Town is the beginnings of that, of like how do we start running into each other. That's beyond Discord, but yeah, this idea of us being able to meet each other is really important. Like all these super interesting people. It's like, I want to meet you. So we all want to meet each other in a way. So we've got to facilitate that hardcore.
Yeah. I want to say that I see already now in our community amazing artists. So I'm just really excited to get to know them. See more of their work, listen what they've done. I think this is for me the most exciting thing is like what you guys are doing, because I sometimes I look, it's like, wow, like I get surprised all the time. So that would be nice to bring a bit more closer connection and get to know each other.
Yeah, so a quick shout out, like even in the general channel of the Discord right now, for example, like I posted yesterday, it would be great to hear about creative projects that you're all working on presently. So for anyone listening in, either live or listening later, feel free to jump in there, share your stuff. Like let's start kind of showing stuff that we're working on right now, things we're curious about. If you have a question about anything in Web3 or the scene, like feel free to just like throw a question in there and let's like have conversation happening and all that, and using Discord in that way. And then, the newsletter will be coming out soon. It'll kind of create these extra tools. And ideally, this kind of gather little like 2D. It's like you become this little 2D gaming character and you're in this world. And then when you encounter other Voyager members, you can instantly jump into a video call right there. We feel is very cool. The opportunity to kind of run into people and have a chat is very nice. And the more that we all have the opportunity to meet each other and have conversations is going to kind of be the very special part of the experience and the energy. And also something that we're thinking of in terms of, look, here's this project. We're interested to create the operating system in season 0. We feel going through that process together is also going to be a really exciting way for us to kind of meet and collaborate and jam on ideas. And because we're working through like, what is the values or the principles of this organization? That's a really interesting and fun project to do collaboratively, because we're sharing about what is important to us, what inspires us, what is the ultimate version of a Web3 creative organization, network, collective that we would all love to be a part of. What's going to be the most conducive, rewarding, high upside, exciting thing to be a part of. We get to define that together. So I feel like that's going to be a really, really fun way for us to kind of jam and meet each other as well. I'm really excited about that. And then it's just art projects all the way down.
That is cool.
I'm excited.
All right. I think we're just over the hour, so I don't know if anyone else wants to share anything. Thank you so much as well for like the cats that are here, just for
super appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
we have members in Australia that are generally not going to wake up as early as me, so they'll be watching on delay. And shout out to my Australian friends who are watching this later. Appreciate you guys too.
We're going to upload these, we are recording all the agoras and we have a YouTube channel, so if people can catch up, because it's a weird timing, like there's the catalog there and then they can listen at their own pace. So
we can start to alternate soon and have different times, and like, there might be the music group or different groups can also meet at different times and potentially jump into Gather Town and hang out there and jam on stuff. So so I guess we'll wrap it here, but also stay tuned. We'll be sharing information and call out very soon for kind of kicking off this initial project. Would love your feedback and thoughts. Maybe we can get a conversation started in the Discord as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out anytime, and really appreciate everyone for showing up here today.
Thanks so much.
Ciao, guys.
Peace.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Have a great day. Good night. Good morning.